The autumn wind carried fallen leaves across. Riverside Cemetery is Margaret? Bennett knelt before a simple marble headstone. Her worn coat offered little warmth against the October chill, and her 3-year-old daughter, Emma, clung to her side, tiny fingers gripping her mother's sweater. Margaret placed a modest bouquet of white chrysanthemums at the base of the grave. Her eyes filled with tears as she read the inscription once more. Sarah Catherine Harrison, beloved wife and friend. 1975-20. Mommy, why are you crying? Emma asked softly, her wide brown eyes full of concern. Margaret wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand. These are grateful tears, sweetheart. This lady was very kind to us. She didn't notice the tall man in the gray suit standing a few yards away, watching. Robert Harrison had come to visit his wife's grave, as he did every Saturday, carrying his own bouquet of white flowers, Sarah's favorite. Robert was 58, silver threading through his dark hair, his kind eyes reflecting the weight of grief he'd carried for nearly a year. He approached slowly, not wanting to intrude on the young woman's private moment. "Excuse me," he said gently. "I couldn't help but notice. That's my wife's grave. May I ask what your connection was to Sarah?" Margaret looked up, startled. She rose quickly, instinctively pulling Emma closer. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. I just wanted to pay my respects." Robert raised his hand reassuringly. "Please don't apologize. I'm just curious. Sarah touched so many lives, but I don't believe we've met." Margaret hesitated, then spoke quietly. "Your wife, she helped us when no one else would. 2 years ago, I was in a terrible situation. My husband had left us and I was pregnant with Emma here. I had nowhere to go." She paused, gathering her thoughts while Emma pressed her face into her mother's coat. "I was sitting outside a cafe trying to warm up. It was winter, and I was scared. Your wife sat down next to me and just started talking. She didn't judge me or look away like most people did. She asked my story, really listened, and then she did something extraordinary." Robert felt his throat tighten. This sounded exactly like Sarah. "She gave me the address of a women's shelter she supported." Margaret continued. "But more than that, she visited me there every week for months. She brought baby supplies, helped me find a job, encouraged me to keep going. When Emma was born, Sarah was one of the first people to hold her." A tear rolled down Margaret's cheek. "She told me something I'll never forget. She said, 'Margaret, kindness isn't charity. It's recognizing the humanity in each other. You're not broken, you're rebuilding. And that takes more strength than most people ever need.'" Robert closed his eyes briefly, hearing Sarah's voice in those words. That was exactly how she thought, how she lived. "I found steady work as a house cleaner," Margaret said. "It's not much, but it's honest. I'm saving for nursing school. Emma has a warm home, food, and a future. All because your wife saw me as a person worth helping." "I wish I could have thanked her properly," Margaret added, her voice breaking. "I came by a few times, but she was already sick by then. I didn't want to burden her. When I heard she'd passed, I felt like I'd lost a guardian angel." Robert stood silent for a long moment, processing this unexpected encounter. Finally, he spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "Sarah never told me about you specifically, but she talked about the shelter often. She believed everyone deserved a second chance, a helping hand. After she passed, I found journals where she wrote about the people she'd met. There might be an entry about you." He paused, studying Margaret's worn clothing, the carefully mended patches on Emma's coat, the flowers that had probably cost a significant portion of this young mother's weekly budget. "I'm Robert," he said, extending his hand, "and I'd like to hear more about how my wife touched your life. If you're willing to share, perhaps we could talk somewhere warmer. There's a cafe just outside the cemetery." "My treat." Margaret looked uncertain. "That's very kind, but I don't want to take up your time." "You're not taking anything," Robert said with a gentle smile. "You're giving me something precious, a story about my wife that I never knew. These past months have been difficult. Hearing how Sarah helped you, it reminds me of why I fell in love with her 35 years ago. At the cafe, over hot chocolate for Emma and coffee for the adults, Margaret shared more details. She spoke of Sarah's weekly visits, how she'd patiently listened without judgment, how she'd connected Margaret with job opportunities and helped her learn to trust again. "She told me about losing a baby years ago," Margaret said softly. She said that grief taught her that everyone carries invisible pain, and compassion costs nothing but means everything. Robert nodded, remembering that dark period in their lives when they'd struggled with infertility, the child they'd lost, and their eventual decision to pour their love into helping others instead. "What are your plans now?" Robert asked. "You mentioned nursing school?" Margaret shrugged. "It's a dream, maybe a few years away. I need to save more first. But I'm managing. Emma is healthy and happy. That's what matters." Robert was quiet for a moment, then made a decision that felt as natural as breathing. "Sarah and I established a scholarship fund for women returning to education. After hardship," he said. "It's specifically designed for single mothers pursuing healthcare careers. I'd like you to apply." Margaret's eyes widened. I couldn't possibly—" "You absolutely could," Robert said firmly but kindly. "This is exactly what Sarah would want. She invested in you because she saw your potential. Let me honor her memory by continuing what she started." Over the following weeks, Robert helped Margaret navigate the application process. The scholarship covered tuition, books, and childcare support. Margaret was accepted into a nursing program starting the next semester. But more than financial help, a friendship blossomed between the grieving widower and the young mother rebuilding her life. Robert became a grandfather figure to Emma, and Margaret's presence reminded him that Sarah's legacy lived on in tangible, beautiful ways. On the first anniversary of Sarah's death, they returned to the cemetery together. This time, they brought 2 bouquets of white chrysanthemums and stood side by side at the grave. "Thank you, Sarah," Margaret whispered, "for seeing me when I was invisible, for believing in me when I'd stopped believing in myself." Robert added quietly, "Thank you for teaching me that love doesn't end, it multiplies through the lives we touch." Emma, now 4, placed a small drawing on the grave, a picture of 3 stick figures holding hands, under a bright sun. "For the nice lady who helps Mommy," she said simply. As they walked back through the fallen leaves, Robert felt something shift inside him. Grief would always be part of his story, but so would this. The knowledge that Sarah's kindness had rippled outward, creating connections that transcended death itself. Margaret squeezed his arm gently. "She must have been an extraordinary woman." "She was," Robert agreed. "And she'd be proud to know that her compassion lives on through you, through Emma, and through all the people you'll help as a nurse." In the golden autumn light, 3 people walked together, bound not by blood, but by something equally powerful. The enduring legacy of a kind woman who believed that everyone deserved to be seen, valued, and given a chance to flourish. And in that moment, Margaret understood the deepest truth. Kindness is never truly lost. It transforms, multiplies, and returns when we need it most. Connecting strangers across time and circumstance, building bridges where once there were only walls.